the actual presentation. So if you wanted to get the slides or the presentation, then obviously go to the web recording, go to the website, and then you can obviously share that amongst your colleagues as well. Right, so without any further ado, you're all here for one thing, and that's obviously to learn how to bring the best talent to your company. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Richard Wilson. I'm the Managing Director of Shorebird. We've been sort of running Shorebird for some time. I've been doing recruitment advertising now since 2004. So since it was a little baby in terms of online recruitment advertising, there was only a few job boards around. And even things like JobSite at that time was called Go JobSite, and Read, believe it or not, was free. So that's how long ago it was. That's some time. And prior to me doing sort of working in Shorebird and creating Shorebird, I used to work in finance, consumer and business finance. And whilst you might think, well, what's that got to do with recruitment advertising? The principle is still relatively the same. We used to look at acquiring loans, so whether it be personal loans, car loans, secured loans, any form of loans, we were looking to lend money and then obviously process those things as well. So the idea was that we would generate all the applications and process them. So very much similar sort of ideas behind it. And I was one of the people that saw the financial crash come in because I did such a good job. Anyway, that's enough about me, I suppose. But in terms of the business, in terms of Shorebird, you may not have heard about us as an organisation from recruitment advertising. I've done a fair job on that because most of the companies that we represent are huge brands. So our clients include people like Morrison's and Yorkshire Water, Play.com as they were, Mamas and Papas. So these are big brands, but obviously their brands are much, much bigger than ours, and we did all of the advertising for them. We work across all sorts of different sectors, as I say on there, sort of manufacturing, retail, banking, charities, and we work across the whole of the UK. We have done work outside of the UK as well, because again the principles still apply. So this gives you some indication of what we do, but the actual principles of advertising and attracting talent are pretty much the same. As an organisation, and people within those businesses, you'll understand the challenges of your businesses and the specific nature of the jobs, but the actual principles don't change. So that's about me. So on to today's webinar. Now, what I want to just try to do to start with is I want to get a feel for who's on the actual poll, who's on the webinar, to give me an indication. So I just want to put a little poll up. And just to give me some idea of whether you are or somebody else in your business is actually responsible for doing the writing. So if you could help me out, that would be great. I've put the options on here about whether you write the adverts or whether you do it collaboratively, or the manager does it or somebody else does it. Great, right. It's an interesting one. Fantastic. That's brilliant. Thank you, guys. Very useful to see. There's a lot of, a good mix, I suppose, here. That some of you are responsible, as you can see from there. That's an interesting mix. A third of you are responsible for doing it yourself, a third do it collaboratively, and a third have obviously got the line managers doing it themselves as well. It'd be interesting to know what the other. So for the others, could you just pop in the chat box where we put others? Just give me an indication of the other side of it, because I just need to try to get an indication of that. So if you can pop in there, that would be great. So nice mix. That's fantastic. Right. So the way we're going to look at, I've broken this down today, is I want to look at and go through things like your company, your job and the advert. Then the important things then that we need to consider as well whilst we're doing this, and that's the application process. What I've called what happens now. And then one of the things that we need to consider is whether you want a talent bank, and I've called it puddle, pool, or bank, because it depends on the size and how big you want that. So, if we now come to the company part, now you all know your company. You know who you are, you know the businesses, and you know the things about your company. Now, if you're trying to attract people to your organisation, we actually have to put a pair of glasses on and look at that through the actual job seeker's eyes, because it's that sort of thing that we're then trying to explain to them about how fantastic our organisation is. So what I've actually got here is I've taken from an advert about just a couple of days ago, an advert that's live on some of the job boards, and this is for O2. Now, it's important that we look at the company through the job seeker's eyes, because if we wrote an advert for O2, we could actually drop into here and tell everybody about how huge the organisation is, how it's a massive corporate, what we actually do in terms of the mobile network. But they've actually taken the stance, which is the correct stance, and that's look at it and sell the organisation to the job seeker. So they're saying here, and their opening line is they think technology is amazing. You can actually see the words on the screen. But we all know O2 as an organisation, and we know it for its size. But actually this statement is the opening statement on an advert for O2, and it tells people, it's telling them why and why they should be excited about joining the organisation. The advert, I will say, goes on to explain a little bit more about the company and the size of the company, but their opening gambit is their what I would call their employer brand, how they're communicating and engaging the actual job seeker. Okay. Now we then need to look at it from that respect, and one of the questions you need to ask yourself is, what do you look like? How are you writing your current adverts? And we probably all drop into the trap where we would all then turn around and explain our organisations for what they are and what we do. And that's what we need to then sort of try to revise now, which is interesting that we were looking at a third of the people that write the adverts are in the marketing department. So one of the things that I would recommend to you is obviously then try to look at it from a job seeker's perspective about your organisation. Try to excite people. Now, I've had a quick scout around before on the internet at some of the companies that we're booking on to the webinar, and quite a lot of you have got some really good information on your website from a careers perspective about your organisations. The question is, have a look at some of your adverts. How does that look? How does that compare? So if it doesn't look good, what should it look like? Create the plan, and then obviously discuss that with the various people within the organisation, collaboratively with your team, and particularly with the marketing side of things, because you need to get them on board. So we need to then look at that from a position, because this is the actual starting point from trying to explain to people the organisation and the beginning point to creating your own brand in the marketplace. Don't go corporate, talk personally about the business. So now let's move on, because now once we've actually created the biography of the company, that no matter how many jobs you've got, that will generally be utilised across the advert, and that can be anywhere in the advert, but that biography then is something that you can utilise. And again, make sure that you go back to that biography and review it, because in 6 months' time you might have 100 more staff or a couple more locations, or you may not, you may have consolidated. But so you need to continually review that biography and make sure that it's up to date, because when we come to the advert, we need to look at it. Is it the job or the advert? Which comes first, chicken or the egg? Well, it is actually the job, because from the job we're going to create the advert. So we then need to have a look at our job description shopping list. Now, one of the big things about this is that the job description, and I've seen some really good, detailed, thorough job descriptions. 7 pages, I think, must be one of the longest ones we've actually seen, and try to translate into an advert. They're great, obviously, to talk about the functions, bringing the person specification into this as well. That can actually add into things. But one of the things we actually need to look at and consider all the time are the keywords. Now, keywords are utilised obviously from an SEO perspective. I'm sure you'll all be aware of the search engine optimization, and that's utilised not only from your own career site but that of job boards. And it's how many times or a word appears that a job seeker may be looking for. So if, in terms of, say, an administrator, as long as we've got administrator into the advert, then that's fine. And you've got to be careful that you don't spam an advert, put it in too many times, because job boards and Google can downgrade it for that. But interesting, we then have to look at things and other keywords that the job may require. Now, people don't generally search for specific qualifications or skill sets or things. They actually sit and when they're searching and they consider the job title that they're actually in. So if they're an administrator, that's great. And if you're an astronaut, that's great. But if you're in sales, you might be a client development executive. Might not be a sales executive. So in that respect, we need to ensure that somewhere in the body of the advert is client development. So when we come back to the shopping list, we need to look at all the skills and the functions within the business. But equally, does that job description, when we convert it into an advert, will our advert have client development in? Because that's going to be a key word, because they're the sorts of CVs we want to see. So we take our job description and person specification, and we need to have a shopping list of keywords, other job descriptions, other titles that you may expect to see on CVs. This will help writing the advert, because when we come into that, we then start to translate it, and then from that we then need to target our audience. So if we've got a 7-page job description, and that is for an administrator, we don't want to see a 5,000-word advert for an administrator, because that's overkill. So therefore, we need to start talking to the audience in the tone and at the level that they're at. So we need to use some givens as well, and that's what I call givens, because if you're an administrator, then there's certain functions that you would expect to do in the job, like answer the phone, data entry, various functions. So to deal with that, rather than list it out as 10 bullet points, just actually cover it in terms of the role description, along with normal administration duties. That covers the givens, because administrators know what they're doing. Most functions do. Marketing managers, sales executives all know that they've got to make outbound sales calls. So what's the point in telling them something that they already know? We need to make sure that it's actually covered, but not in a bullet point, not in a great big long list. We need to talk to them properly and in a nice way. If you imagine a bullet point is like poking somebody in the ribs. You don't stand somewhere and have a conversation with somebody and poke them in the ribs every time you want to tell them something. You bring it into conversation. So that's something that we've got to look at and always address there. So it's very important that we use the tone of voice to the correct audience. So as I say, if you're a marketing manager, then you would expect to see a medium-sized advert. And again, when I say medium-sized, you're looking at maybe 4,000 words, but a decent-sized advert, because that's at the level that you're doing. But again, instead of turning around and saying the role, talk about, well, what will you be doing as a marketing manager? So we're talking to them as if we're having a conversation with them, engaging them with the advert and encouraging them to read more. We've got to look at that, and as we then drop into that, along with your normal duties the traditional duties of a marketing manager, your responsibilities will also include. And this is where we can then drill down and give the specifics of our organisation and of that role. Okay. Now, on to the next part, the structure of an advert. This is quite an interesting one, because this is actually, in my opinion, it's personal taste. So I don't believe there's any rights or wrongs to an advert. What I would say to you is, if you're running an advert and it's a frequent advert for the same type of role, move it around. Don't have the same format all the time. So if it was, say, a call center role, you need to then maybe start off one advert with about how exciting the company is to work for, and then in a couple of months' time, change it around and talk about them. Then talk about the job and put the company at the end. Move it around, keep it fresh. But if you're looking for a marketing manager and you only ever hire a marketing manager once a month, think about it. If you're a marketing manager, what's going to be important to you? It's going to be about the company. So you're interested in the company. So let's put the company first. Then you might be interested in the job itself and then about you. If you're an engineer, you might be more interested in the actual job. Then you might be interested. Then you'll be thinking along the lines of, what skills do I need to have this job? So then we put the about you, and then finally we'll put the company bio at the end. Always always have an how to and apply method on the end, and it's just simply how to apply. But think about the people that you're targeting and the level that you're targeting. That's quite important, because this is your chance to engage them. If you have a very stale advert that is traditional and it's the same structure all the time, people as job seekers, whether they're actively looking or passively just in the market at the time, not in the market but just seeing what's going on, if they see the same advert time after time after time in the same structure, they'll be thinking this is a very corporate company. If that's the way you want to be seen, that's great. But if you want to be seen as a creative organisation, an organisation that cares in any way, and only you know how you want your organisation to be seen, it's one of the reasons why you need to keep moving it around, so that people then realise that you're not stuck in your ways, that you do change. Okay. So, now we've gone through all the bits we've gone through, and we're structuring our advert, and we've written our perfect advert, we've shared it around with the team, and even if the line managers are writing it, we need to give people constructive feedback as regards to it. It's a matter of opinion, as I was saying, but the important part is, does it have the correct words in for that particular type of job? Does it have all the words in there that would appear on people's CVs? The next question is, where do you advertise it? So, loads of different places to go. Depends upon your budgets. But we've got all the job boards, we've got all the sort of sources here: national job boards, regional job boards, job centres, social media. So we've got free sources here. Again, we need to select the method that is most appropriate and most cost effective for the job. So if it's an administrator, if you place an advert for an administrator on a national job board, they're generally all adverts are live for 28 days, a month. Place an advert on a job board, a national job board, for a month, and dependent on your location, if you're in a large city, you'll end up with hundreds of applications. Do you want more than one administrator? So you need to select the appropriate method. I appreciate that all roles have time constraints on them, so we need to fill roles quickly. But importantly, we need to find the right person. And through that, we need to select the right source. So if we're looking at an administrator role, what's wrong with the job centre? The job centre is free. That might have lots of administrator vacancies. And actually, the job centre is quite a useful source of applications. It is actually one of the top 10 job boards that are searched, and it's free. That's marvellous. If the skill level that you're looking for is just straightforward and it's administration, data entry, there's nothing wrong with that, and that's one of the audiences that we need to approach. We don't need to, we have to keep mixing this, because if we continually advertise all our administration vacancies once a month, every month on the job centre, people will be sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, they're a hire and fire culture. So we advertise it in one source and then we'll rest it and then move it on to something else. You could, for example, you could move it onto a regional job board if you're in a large town. If you're in small suburbs and you're out in the sticks, as we're looking on here, we've got Scarborough, for example. So Scarborough's right out on the coast. Now that may require, it may work just doing an ordinary regional advert. But if you actually got a high level job, a medium level job, say a marketing manager, or even a very specific job, job centre and regional job boards aren't the mix. We need to start looking at maybe national ones and specialist publications. And when I put specialist in there, I mean things. Again, we have to consider the audience. So you might have a paid-for trade publication, but one of the rising stars in the marketplace now is LinkedIn. That's amazing, because that tackles both active and passive. So that's a specialist publication, and if you've got a senior widget engineer and you're based in Scarborough, sorry Vicky, I don't know if you make widgets, but if you've got a very specific role in a relatively specific location such as Scarborough, then you need to consider how you're going to find this, and therefore, what's the point in advertising your role in Scarborough? You might need to move to the next largest conurbation to do that. In the advert, still state that the job is in Scarborough, but move the location of the role to the next biggest town. The reason behind this is all job boards, they all work in the same way now. From a job seeker's perspective, they make you put your postcode in. Now, within there, naturally job boards are now defaulted to return the results within a 10-mile radius. So if you're in a location that's remote, and you put your location in, if you're 10 miles away from, or 15 miles away from the next largest town, the person then has to actually select that it's a much wider scope for their search, and therefore you may or may not come up in their searches. So if you actually think this out at the beginning, and rather than place your mid-level job or specialist role in your location, post it in the next largest town where most of your senior management people may come from. Think about the people in your organisation. Where do they all live? If they all live in your town, that's great. But if you've got people travelling to you, we need to consider those as bases for where we advertise our vacancies, because that's where we've got to do. The job boards and where we're posting, and even down to social media, it all works within a radius of where you're based. So move that base. Move it out, and just look at all the people in your organisation. Where do they live? Try placing adverts in amongst where they are. We've got to think these things out rather than just place it in our current location, because 9 times out of 10 we find that most companies have cleared that talent pool out. I was speaking to a particular client today, and they were looking for drivers in one particular location. And over a period of time, the number of applications and the amount of views that an advert was seeing was dropping. That's because their adverts were being noticed. Now, the issue there is that people were coming from much further afield. So therefore, if we move that advert to a different location, now we're fishing in a different pond. And now our advert might be seen by a different set of people. So this is the sort of thing that we always have to consider, that once you've run an advert for one particular type of job near your location, move it. Fish in a different pond. You can do that as well. If you've got job board accounts, if you have your own job boards and you're placing your own adverts, then you can actually do that within job boards. You can actually log into your advert halfway through and potentially change the location. Some job boards allow it. It depends upon who the job board is. But if you've got a good account manager within that job board, move the location. Fish in a different pond. It's not too late. That's what we have to look at. And then there's other things as well. As I put on here, targeted emails from job boards. If you're doing volume recruitment and you're in a call centre and you have 12 seats to fill for a month, one advert isn't going to generate all the people to fill 12 seats. So therefore, you need to look at something else. Either you need to reduce the expectation down, maybe, or look at doing something else. Increase the distribution, go across more adverts, or even try the targeted emails, because some job boards have campaigns that do it to a small number of, say, 500 people, and some do it to thousands of people. We do this for quite a number of companies in terms of volume recruiting, and the results we see is phenomenal. So we're able to fill 20 people into one vacancy in a month by substituting an advert. And again, the principles still apply. We have to search a radius and target that radius and draw them back in and make the advert popular. And it's all about keywords as well. Right. So that's about the advert. Now we then need to start thinking as regards to we've done our job, and we see this lots of times. As an organisation, we do our job very successfully. We get the adverts out in front of the audience, and we can see that, because when you log into the back of job boards, we can see the amount of views that an advert has received. So it's quite interesting sometimes when we see hundreds and hundreds of views, and then we can see the amount of times people have applied. Now, one of the interesting parts is that there's 2 types of job seekers. We have active job seekers and we have passive job seekers. And one of the things we've found, because we power career sites for companies, that we've seen 40% of the initial visits to people's websites are now via mobile phones. They're looking to apply for a vacancy quickly. Active job seekers are looking for a job now. So they may be travelling. Most people do this on the bus or going to work in the morning on the train. They'll see a job advertised on a job board and click apply, and it takes people through, generally straight through to your website. So you have to then start asking yourself, if that's the way job seekers are now moving, and we've seen this increase from about 20% to 40% in the last 12 to 18 months. It's how it's moving. The ability now for people to use Dropbox and Google Drive, they have their CVs on. They're looking for a job. They're actively looking, so they'll use their mobile. They need to get their application in because they want to move now, or they may be out of work. So, is your website, is your career site mobile friendly? Can it deal with mobile applications? This is one of the factors that you may be getting lots of views for your applications, but you might not be getting applications. They may click apply, but when they come through, your website, your application method doesn't deal with mobile phones. If you've got an email address on your advert, people can't email you easily from their mobile phone. So they may then stop. They may abort the application. The principle of active job seekers is you need to make sure your application process is very simple and very quick and very mobile friendly, because that's the whole point. That's what people want to do. I'm searching for a job. And then we have the passive job seekers. These are the people that are a little bit more considered. They've got a little bit more time. They're not as in a rush. So what they'll see is they'll see an advert. They'll see your business, and they'll come to your website. They'll Google your company, and then they'll look at your website and see what you look like. This is your opportunity to sell your business. And as I say, I've seen a few of the websites, and some of your websites are fantastic. You deal with that answer about the careers in your organisation. So you've done your job there. The next thing is they may want to apply via your career site. So again, is your application process able to deal with this? Because it's all right doing all of the best things in the world with the advertising, but if they can't apply, whether they're active or passive, if they can't apply for their job in a quick, timely manner, then you'll lose them. After all, what you have to bear in mind now is we have to look at job seekers as consumers. They're not the actual situation now has now changed. Everybody needed a job, and whilst people have jobs, and lots of people, we're in a state of great employment in this country. Very few people unemployed, so everybody now has a job. Now people are wanting to look at the company and look at what the company has to offer them. So they're now a consumer. So from that perspective, put your consumer hat on. What do you look like? What does your application process look like? Because if you're a consumer, if you imagine going to Amazon and you try to buy something off Amazon, if it took you 10 clicks to buy something off Amazon, are you likely to carry that on? Or are you looking for the simplest possible way to buy something? It might take 2 or 3 clicks, but all of the websites now, you look at banks, online banking, all the process now is as minimum amounts of clicks to get you from actually hitting the website to concluding your transaction, whatever that is. Same happens with job seekers. They're looking for exactly the same way. They are a consumer, so you have to consider that's the way it needs to be. Consumers don't want a lengthy process. They don't want to email people in anymore, because what they're worried about now is what happens next. Again, these people now are consumers. Now, as we go along, they'll be thinking, I'll apply for my vacancy. We'll all, generally speaking, now have the process where people get thanked for applying for our vacancy. And then what happens? The question then is, from a job seeker's perspective, what does happen? So the passive job seekers see your advert and come to your website because they have a distrust for job boards. The application, they may feel, may get lost. It may not. But then when they've applied to you and they get a thank you email, they know that their application's in. But the bottom line is, once they've made their application, isn't it common decency to keep in touch with them, just like the shopping, all the online shops do with us? So they tell us that they thank us for our order, and then they tell us our order is being dispatched, and then they ask us that and make sure that our order has arrived. Shouldn't we be doing the same? If an application is unsuccessful and we've reviewed that application, we should be telling them that's the case. The reason why I'm saying this effectively is no matter what we do at the beginning, If somebody has applied to us once in the past and we fail to communicate with them, we're failing to engage with them, because they will remember that. They will remember that they've applied to your organisation in the past and that they've never received an outcome. So from that respect, why would they reapply? Why would they come back to you if you haven't told them of the outcome of the application? We will always tell people if we're interested in them, and once we've interviewed them, we tell them that they haven't got the job or they have got the job. But all the people that may, when we look at their CVs, may have something, we turn around and say, well, maybe in 6 months' time the skills might be better. If we don't communicate with them, in 6 months' time when we're looking to hire for that job, they won't apply because we haven't told them. They'll be thinking of all of the great work we've done at the beginning, all of the attraction, and we attracted them last time. We're making the job exceptionally difficult the second time that person comes to see one of our adverts. No matter where it is, whether it's free or whether it's paid for, they will always turn around and think to themselves, I've applied to that company in the past, and I will apply to them again because I was told that I was unsuccessful. It's not the answer that I was looking to hear, but I got an email. They told me that. And equally, if you've failed to do that, then they'll be sitting back thinking, well, why should I apply? Because the likelihood is if I'm not successful, they're not going to tell me again. So we've got to look at it in that respect. We've got to then deal with those people. And again, the same sort of rule applies, with talent, to talent portals or banks. Do we want talent? If you've got a volume role and you're always looking to hire people in that, and it's a customer service role, then having a talent bank isn't really where it's at. Team leaders maybe, team managers maybe, but even that I would turn around and say is such a fast-moving type of job that having a talent bank will become out of date. We then have to, so we're looking at it from whether or not we want to keep it. So realistically, we have to bear that in mind. We should, because we've spent all this money, we should be talent banking them. All the specialist roles, the hard-to-fill roles, we need to bear those people in mind. But we then equally have to ourselves, do we want the hassle? Because we come back to the same principle, is we've marked them as talent, and then we might send them an email saying to them that you're great, but unfortunately we haven't got a job for you, or we decline them and say they're marvellous. But once we've done that and we keep them in the talent bank, we should keep engaged with them, because if you think about then going back to that person in 9 months' time, and they've not heard from us in 9 months' time, during that period of time, and then suddenly 9 months later or 6 months later, we drop them an email or we pick the phone up and call them. What have we done in between time? How have we kept them engaged? It becomes a cold call then, and that person then may be in a new job, so it becomes a very difficult situation. And equally, they may not take the call, and equally, they may think, well, why is it now that you've decided to call me? Very suspicious in that respect. So do you want the hassle? And if you are creating a talent bank, or a talent puddle as I like to call it, because if we should really only keep the people that we're really interested in, we should then engage with them. We should then use things like Facebook. So when we turn people down, tell people if we turn them down and they're good for the business, tell them, keep in touch, follow us on Facebook if we have that, or if you're using social media, put that on your email as you're turning people down. If you're turning people down and they don't have any fit to the business, just send them a nice, kind thank you email. But for the ones that you believe that are useful for the business, send them something more. Keep them engaged with you, because it's going to make it really, really difficult for you. And then if we put a new advert out that they then see, and we've engaged with them and they're watching us on Facebook, and we haven't had the time, because we're so super busy that we haven't had the time to check our talent bank yet, they then may see the advert and then apply for it directly without us even having to do anything. All of the attraction strategies that we do, all the work that we do at the beginning can be ruined if we don't do this. And then equally, if we do it all during the time, it makes the acquisition job a lot easier as it comes along. So I'm going to give you some of my top tips to help you along. And the first thing really, and the biggest one for me, is create your strategy. How do you want to be seen in the marketplace as an organisation? Because once you've created that, that's what you should live by, and that's what you should update. That's how you communicate with everybody. How you want to, all of the things, how you're going to use social media to engage people, how you're going to look at, how you're going to deal with people, how you're going to communicate with them, how often, what the emails look like. This all fits in. All the touch points drop into this brand strategy. Secondly, I urge you to think about adding other keywords, other job titles onto your job description and person specification, because from a lot of times I see in organisations where the company is vast, and it's whilst the person that's recruiting understands the nature of the job or understands the organisation, they don't understand the specific nature of the role. So when we write an advert as a recruiter, as an advertiser, we can only get so much from it. But if we had all of the words, all of the job titles that the line manager would expect to see on a CV, it helps us position that advert. It's amazing the amount of times that when we run an advert for the first time, and then after about a week, we'll speak to the line managers. After a quick review of the CVs, they'll say to us that the CVs that are lacking this skill or that skill. It's because we haven't got it in the advert. We've actually attracted the people that we've advertised for, but we actually haven't attracted the people that we specifically needed because we didn't have the specific words. Spend time with the line managers. Get those keywords onto your job descriptions, because every time an advert comes through, if that's on the job description or person specification, it makes the job so much easier. Talk to the audience is my third tip. Don't talk at it. I think all of us don't like to be talked at if we feel it condescending. So that's why I'm saying to talk to them. Rather than turn around and say the role is about you, talk to them. Say to them, what skills will you need to be considered for our job? Talk to them, engage them, use nice words. Next part of my tips to you is keep your process simple. Speed is of the essence, but you have to balance that versus the actual application method. If you have application forms to fill in, you have to bear that in mind. Some people won't spend 25 minutes completing an application form there and then because they're on the bus. So maybe you need to consider an interim process where people email in and the application forms are sent out. They are consumers, so keep your process simple. Finally, my last piece of advice to you is engage with your applicants. Email them. The amount of adverts I see on job boards that say, if you have not heard from us within 14 days, consider your application as unsuccessful. How would you feel if you placed an order with a company and they said, if your delivery hasn't arrived within 14 days, consider it that we haven't got it in stock? You'd be outraged. They've taken your money and you'd be outraged. So engage with people. Email them. It's common decency. Finally, we've got an audit which I'll pop the web address up to we've created so that it enables you to look at your business and work out what you need to do. I'm just going to put the web address up here for you in the chat so that you can then actually get to that there. So we've got audits available. And this is all along the ideas then of this is an attraction audit, so you can actually look at how your business is currently, and then obviously plan it out. So yeah, that may help you going forward. So I've put that up so you can have a look at it. You download it for free. It's great. I'm about to say that obviously because I've done it, because I wrote it. But what I want to do now is open up for any questions, any specific questions you've got. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the recording so that obviously, from your own